So this question is asking us to work with the cuboid, it's asking us to work with the volume, and it wants us to do a show that. So the trigger for show that is look what the context is, and the context is volume. So we know the volume of a cuboid is the length times the width times the height. So basically what the question is asking us to do is replace the length, the width and the height with the algebra, the expressions, and then show that when you multiply all these out you get what they want in the actual question itself. So the volume is equal to the length. Well, the length of this longest side is x to take away 2. The width of it is x, and the height of it is 2. So we recognise that x times x is x squared. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. So doing this step by step. So I've done the first bracket times the first bit. Now I'm going to double these up. So we've got 2x squared, take away 4x's. And they told us that the volume is 51. That's 2x squared, take away 4x equals 51. They're telling us to make it equal to 0. So basically then we're going to take away 51 from both sides and take away 51 from there. So this tells me then we have 2x squared, take away 4x, take away 51 equal to 0. So that's kind of how we do the show that type question, is we think of what the context is. This question gave us a context of volume, so we recognise the shapes of cuboid, work out that from the formula for volume by writing down what the formula is. We can then replace each of the component parts with the expressions given for them, multiply out the brackets like we'd normally do, step by step. We find out that we get 2x squared take away 4x equals 51, which is the volume given. And when we rearrange that to get the equals that was given in the quadratic, then we end up with the quadratic they actually gave us. The question then goes on to say solve the quadratic equation created and give your solutions correct to 3 significant figures. They're shouting out here then that you're going to use the formula. It's on a calculator paper and they're saying they want the answer to 3 significant figures, so that means you're probably likely to go into decimals. So you're not going to factorise this easy, so we use the formula. So from the front of the exam paper we can see that the formula says that if you have the general quadratic ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, which this one compares to that, then you can find the x value by doing the negative of the b value plus or minus the square root of the b value squared, take away 4ac all over 2a. So we look at the equation itself, and we can see when we compare these two that the number in front of the x squared is the a value, so that's going to tell us that a is worth 2. The number in front of the x value is the b value, and we can see from here that in front of the x is take away 4, so b is going to be worth negative 4. And we can see here that at the end here we have negative 51, and that's in the same place as the plus c, so c will equal negative 51. So we got those are our values. The plus or minus thing here is telling us to get 2 answers. So x is either going to be negative b, so it's going to be negative the b value. Substitute negatives inside brackets always. That's my advice to you, to make sure you limit the mistakes you potentially could make. It's telling me to do the b squared value, so we take the value because it's negative inside a bracket and square it. Notice it's the bracket squared. Take away 4 lots of the a value, which is 2 in this case, times the c value, which is also a negative, so substitute that into a bracket as well. And we're dividing by 2 lots of the a value, so 2 times 2. Or the plus or minus is telling me that there's another value possible. X is equal to negative, so take away the substitute to the b value, so negative 4, take away the square root of negative 4 squared, take away 4 lots of 2 times negative 51 all over 2 lots of 2. Now there's lots of different calculators out there, guys, so I tend to use this one because I'm used to it. I've had it a few years now, but if you've got a fraction key that looks like it's the box, then of course you can press that and you can just type in exactly what you see here, being careful to use negatives when you need to and takeaways when you need to. So I'm going to do this one first. So we got negative negative, which we should recognise as positive, so that's going to be 4 plus the square root. Now I need all of this to happen on my calculator, so I have to start the thing with a bracket, then I type everything I've written here. So we have bracket negative 4, close the bracket, squared, take away 4 times 2 times, open a bracket, negative 51, close the bracket. And because I had to start the bracket with the square root, I have to end the thing with a bracket. I'm going to press equals because I want the top line answer to be done first. Then I divide by 2 times 2, which is 4, so I divide by 4, and that gives me an answer of 6 points. Well, they wanted to 3 significant figures, so it gives me an answer of 6.15. So this one gives me an answer of 6.15. I then do the other answer. Again, I recognise I've got negative negative, so that means I'm going to just put in plus 4. So 4, take away square root. Now again, I'll be really careful. I want to put all of this inside the square root, so I open a bracket, then I type in exactly what I've written there. So bracket negative 4, close bracket, squared, take away 4 times 2 times, open a bracket, negative 51. Don't forget using the negative key here when I want negatives, and I'm using the minus key when I want to do takeaways. So negative 51, close the bracket, and I started a bracket to do the square root, so I finished by closing the bracket at the end of the square root, press equals, and then divide by 4. Divide by the 2 by 2. Again, 3 significant figures, so 1, 2, 3, 7 changes of 4, so it's going to be negative 4.15. So this one gives me negative 4.15. So those are the 2 answers that I think I'm going to choose. And again, I should be expecting 2 answers, because if I remember what the graph of this looks like, then we know from the way quadratic graphs work that quite often there are 2 cross points on the 0 line, which is the y equals 0 line, and these are called the roots. And we've got the 2 values which we found here, 6.15 and negative 4.15. Of course, at the end of a question like this, we spend a lot of time on it, and it's worth 7 marks altogether, so hence the reason I'm going to spend 7 or 8 minutes on this. Then we should do the check. Alright, it's really important we do the check that these worked. So we've got the equation, so we've got 2 times 6.15 squared, so replace the x with the value we think, take away 4 times 6.15, take away 51. Now what we hope to see when we get this is an answer close to 0. It won't be exactly 0 because we rounded our answer to 3 significant figures. So 2 times 6.15 squared, take away 4 times 6.15, take away 51 equals 0.045. So the check is fine. It's given an answer close to 0, and I'm quite happy with that. Again, we should check the negative value as well to make sure that worked. So that's how we can show that question by using the concept of the question. It's about volume, so write down a formula, then replace the formulas with their expression parts. And then when the question says solve a quadratic and it's asking for an answer that looks like it's going to be decimal answers, then we use the formula. And we just be careful how we put in negative numbers into our calculators. Really important that we put negatives inside brackets. Calculators have a funny way of not working with negatives properly, so cover yourself, put it inside brackets, and always check at the end that the answer you got for x's work. Point to a solution question. It must work for the equation you've